We will begin this tutorial by listing out the tools needed to build this e-commerce recommendation system, and the very first one is our trusty assistant, ChatGPT. ChatGPT will help us with all the coding. For the front end, we'll use a combination of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to make things look nice and interactive. Then, for the back end, we'll dive into Node.js to handle all the logic. And of course, we can't forget about Artflow for generating product images. Once we have all these tools in place, we'll jump into our code editor. I'm using VS Code. By the way, we will create the 3 main files needed for this project: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. After that, we'll open a new terminal in VS Code and get ready to run our code. Sound good? Awesome. Let's get started by heading over to ChatGPT to input our first prompt and kick off this project. Alright, so to start off, we're going to set up our e-commerce recommender system. We'll be relying on ChatGPT to walk us through the entire process, starting with setting up our Node.js project. The first prompt we'll give ChatGPT is simple: help me set up a Node.js project with the following setup. Then we'll mention a few specifics: install Node.js if not already installed. Initialize a new project with npm init. Install Express to build our server, and CORS to handle cross-origin requests. Now, looking at the first step, ChatGPT says to install Node.js if we haven't already done so. I've got it installed, but if you don't, you can download it from nodejs.org. Once you have Node.js installed, you can check it's working by typing node v in your command line to confirm the version. For the next step, initializing a new project, ChatGPT tells us to create a dedicated folder for the project. I've already done that, so I'll go ahead and open the folder in my code editor. I'm using VS Code here, and then we're ready for the first real command. We'll copy the command provided by ChatGPT, which is npm init y. We'll then go back to our terminal, paste it in, and let it run. This command will create a package.json file in our project, which holds all our project information. Once it runs, you'll see a package.json file pop up in our project folder. That means we're on the right track. Alright, next up is installing Express and CORS. These are essential. Express helps us build the server, while CORS allows different origins to communicate with it. So we'll copy npm install Express CORS from ChatGPT, head back to the terminal, and paste it in. After a few moments, it'll finish, and we should see a packagelock.json file appear in our project folder, confirming the installations were successful. Next, we'll ask ChatGPT to generate code for a basic Express server that listens on port 5000 and includes a GET route to respond with a simple "Hello World" message. ChatGPT goes through the prompt and provides a detailed set of instructions along with the code we'll need. Following what ChatGPT outlined, our first task is to create a file called server.js in our code editor. I'm using VS Code here. We'll copy and paste the initial code provided by ChatGPT directly into this file. With that done, the next step is to run our server by entering the command node server.js in the terminal. Let's copy that command from ChatGPT, go back to our terminal in VS Code, paste it, and see what happens. At first, there's no response our terminal, which isn't quite what we expected. So, we'll head back to ChatGPT to check if we're missing something. Sure enough, ChatGPT mentions we need to visit localhost 5000 in our browser to view the server response. Let's copy that link, go over to our browser, and enter it. But again, nothing seems to appear. To troubleshoot, we decide to reload our code editor using live server, then return to the terminal and rerun the command node server.js. And, success! We now see server is running at port 5000 in our terminal, which means the server is up and running. Finally, when we refresh localhost 5000 in the browser, we get the response, eCommerce Recommender API, just as ChatGPT outlined in our server.js file. Now that everything is set up, we're ready to move on to the next steps. Continuing with the tutorial, our next step is to instruct ChatGPT to help us create a products.json file that will contain mock data for 12 products. We specify to ChatGPT that each product should have certain key details: an ID, name, category, price, and image URL. ChatGPT then provides us with detailed guidelines and a sample code structure for how this data should be arranged. Following ChatGPT's guidance, we'll go ahead and create a products.json file in our VS Code project folder. Once we've created the file, we'll paste the sample code provided by ChatGPT directly into it. The data is structured as an array of objects, so each product entry has the attributes we specified: ID, name, category, price, and image URL. This products.json file will serve as our mock product database, allowing us to test the recommendation features and functionality of our e-commerce recommendation system. It's straightforward but important, as it provides a foundation for how we'll handle product data throughout the rest of the project. Once the file is saved, we're ready to proceed to the next step, where we'll integrate this data into our application. Alright, so now we're ready to take the next step in building our e-commerce recommender system by setting up an API route. We'll let ChatGPT know that we want to create a new route in our Express server, which will return a list of 12 products from our products.json file when a GET request is made to /recommendations/user-ID. ChatGPT breaks it down into 2 key steps for us. First, make sure our products.json file is in the right place. We already did this. Our products.json is in the same directory as server.js and contains the 12 products with each product's ID, name, category, price, and image URL. Next, we need to modify our server.js to add the new route. ChatGPT provides us with a code snippet that includes the setup for the /recommendations/user-ID route. I'll go ahead and copy that code. Now, let's jump back into our code editor, open up server.js, and paste in ChatGPT's code. This snippet will allow us to handle requests to /recommendations/user-ID by sending back our mock product data from products.json. With that code in place, it's time to test it out. We'll save our changes, open the terminal, and run the command node server.js. Now, here's where things get a bit tricky. When I try to type in node server.js to start the server, I realize that I can no longer type in the terminal. That's strange, right? I can't seem to interact with it at all. So, what do I do next? I try going back to ChatGPT and copying the testing link provided. I paste it into my browser search bar, and now I'm getting an error message: cannot get /recommendations/1. Naturally, I turn to my trusty assistant, ChatGPT, for some guidance. I tell ChatGPT about the issue, explaining that when I try to access the curl URL, I'm getting the error message, cannot get /recommendations/1. And the thing is, 1 is a valid user ID in our products.json file, so I'm a bit confused about what's going wrong. ChatGPT quickly gives me some troubleshooting advice. The first thing it suggests is that I need to make sure the server is running properly. Apparently, the issue could be that the server might have stopped running in the background, which is why I can't type anything into the terminal anymore. Here's what ChatGPT advises me to do: press Ctrl+C to stop the server, and then restart it with the node server.js command. This could be the reason the terminal is locked, as the server might still be running in the background and preventing any further input. So, I go ahead and follow this advice. I hit Ctrl+C in the terminal to stop the server, and then I type in node server.js once again. This time, when I hit enter, I get a nice confirmation message that the server is running at port 3000, which is a great sign that things might be back on track. To confirm if everything is now working as expected, I return to ChatGPT and copy the testing link it provided. I then open a new tab in my browser and paste the link to check if the issue has been resolved. However, I'm still seeing the same error message, cannot get /recommendation/1. At this point, I decide to investigate further and go back to my server.js file to check if there's anything we've missed in the code. As I review the code, I notice the issue: the project folder name is recommend, not recommendation as it's written in the code. This is a small but critical discrepancy, so I go ahead and make that adjustment both in the code and in the testing link in my browser. Once that's done, I reload the browser, and, beautiful. This time, the page loads correctly, and we see the expected result, a list of products along with their corresponding user IDs, just like we have in our product.json file. This confirms that we have successfuli created an API route in the Express server that returns a list of 12 products from the products.json file when a GET request is made to /recommend/, which is the command we had input earlier. It shows that we're on track, and everything is now working as intended. The server is supposed to return only the recommended products for the user with ID 1, because that's what we specified in the search bar. http://localhost 3000/recommend/1. However, instead of showing the products for user ID 1, the browser displays a list of recommended products for all users. To address this, we head back to ChatGPT and explain the issue. Everything seems to be working now, but when I access http://localhost 3000/recommend/1 with user ID 1, the browser shows recommendations for all users instead of just user 1. How can I ensure it only displays recommendations specific to user 1? ChatGPT provides us with an updated set of code to resolve the issue. This new code introduces filter logic, which ensures that when we query a specific user by their user ID, the server filters and returns only the products recommended for that particular user. To make this filter logic effective, ChatGPT suggests an update to the products.json file. A new field, recommended for, is added to each product in the array. This field contains the ID of the user to whom the product is recommended. Here's what we'll do next: copy the updated server.js code provided by ChatGPT and replace the old code in our file. Update the products.json file to include the new recommended for field for each product. Go back to the terminal, stop the server by pressing Ctrl+C, and restart it by typing node server.js. Open a new browser tab and paste in the testing URL http://localhost 3000/recommend/1 to confirm if the filter logic is working. And, beautiful. It's working perfectly. The browser now displays only the products recommended for user ID 1, exactly as specified in the products.json file. To double-check, we test another user ID, let's say user ID 8. We paste the URL http://localhost 3000/recommend/8 into the browser, and the results are flawless. Every detail matches the data in the products.json file for user ID 8. This confirms that the filter logic is functioning correctly, and our API is now successfully returning recommendations for individual users as intended. Next, we'll tell ChatGPT to create a users.json file that contains mock user data. This file will simulate personalized product recommendations based on user preferences or past interactions. Each user in the file will have 3 key attributes: an ID, a name, and a list of 12 different product categories they prefer. ChatGPT will provide us with the mock data for 12 users, each with their unique preferences. Once we have the generated code, we'll copy it and head back to our code editor. In the editor, we'll create a new file named users.json within the project directory. Then, we'll paste the code into this file and save it. This file will play an important role in enabling personalized recommendations by linking user preferences to the products they are most likely to interact with. Now, with the users.json file ready, we can proceed to integrate it into the project. The next step is to ask ChatGPT to modify the /recommend/user ID API route to return personalized product recommendations based on user preferences. For simplicity, this will involve filtering the products by category, matching them with the user's preferences. ChatGPT will provide us with an updated code snippet for the server.js file. We'll copy this updated code and replace the existing code in our server.js file in the code editor. Once the changes are made, we'll save the file and head back to the terminal. There, we'll stop the currently running server by pressing Ctrl+C, and restart it by typing node server.js. With the server running, we'll load the project in the live server and input our testing URL in the browser to confirm if everything is working as expected. Oh! We've encountered an error message in the browser, indicating that something isn't quite right. So, we'll return to the server.js file in our code editor to inspect the issue. After a quick review, we notice the problem. The code refers to a file named users.json, but we had mistakenly created a file named user.json. To fix this, we'll rename the file to users.json, ensuring it matches what's referenced in our code. With the correction made, we'll reload the browser to test the functionality again. There we go. The user Alice Johnson now appears in our browser as expected. However, there's still one minor issue: the recommendations are not personalized. Instead of displaying only the recommended products and categories associated with Alice, we're seeing data for all users. To address this, we'll return to ChatGPT and ask it to refine the code further so that the API displays only the recommendations specific to the user ID provided in the request. We'll return to ChatGPT and explain that while the code it provided earlier worked, we are still seeing recommended products and categories for all users alongside the data for a specific user. What we actually want is to fetch only the recommended products and categories for the particular user whose ID we input in the browser. We'll ask ChatGPT to provide us with a filter logic solution, similar to what it did earlier. ChatGPT will generate the updated code for us. Once we have it, we'll replace the existing code in our server.js file with the new one, save the changes, and head back to the terminal. We'll stop the server using Ctrl+C, restart it by running node server.js, and then reload the project in the live server to check for updates. At first glance, it's obvious that nothing has changed. This is a common experience when working with AI tools. It's perfectly normal. Sometimes, the initial adjustments don't produce the intended result. The next step is to refine our prompt, making it more specific and clear so ChatGPT can better understand our requirements. After sending this restructured prompt, ChatGPT provides us with another set of code and mentions that for the updated code to work, our user.json file must include a preferred category field and our products.json file must have a category field. Luckily, we already have these fields in place. So, once again, we'll update our server.js file with the new code. Don't worry, I'll include a link to all the prompts used in this tutorial in the description below so you can follow along and practice. With the updated code in place, we'll reload the server and test the functionality in the browser. And, excellent! We now have a well-filtered list of recommended products and categories for Alice Johnson. Checking back in the code editor, we can confirm that everything is accurate and working as expected. Let's test a few more users. For user number 8, Hannah Scott, the results in the browser perfectly correspond with what's in the user.json and products.json files. Now, let's check user number 4, Diana Williams. Again, everything matches perfectly. So far, I think our backend is in place. Now it's time to work on the front end. We'll ask ChatGPT to provide us with the code for a good user interface for our project. ChatGPT will then give us a rundown of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript code for the front-end part of our project. Once we have the code, we'll copy and paste each of the sections into their respective files that we've already created. While ChatGPT provides the code in a file named app.js, we've named ours script.js. So, we'll rename the file from app.js to script.js to make it consistent with our project structure. Once we are done, we will load it in live server to see what we have. Wow, the user interface looks great. When we click on the Recommendations button, we see 5 cards displayed in a row. Each card has a cool bouncing effect on hover, which adds some interactive flair to the user interface. This animation makes the user experience feel more dynamic and engaging. Next, we'll enhance the styling by adding some advanced prompts for the e-commerce product recommendation system. I'll ask ChatGPT to generate CSS that meets the following requirements: minimal and clean look. The design should be visually appealing with a simple, clean layout. Font styling, we'll use Poppins for headings and Roboto for body text, making both fonts bold and appropriately sized for readability. Responsive grid layout, we'll create a grid layout for the product cards to ensure they display well on various screen sizes. Flipping effect, we'll apply a normal flipping effect to the product cards, so they rotate when hovered over. Mobile-friendly design, to make sure the page looks good on mobile devices, we'll use media queries for responsiveness. ChatGPT will provide us with the updated CSS and JavaScript code to achieve these effects. Once we get the code, we'll copy and paste it into the respective files, CSS and JS. Finally, we'll load the project in Live Server to check how everything looks and ensure all the new styles are applied correctly. That's awesome to hear. Party Popper, it sounds like everything is coming together beautifully, from the flipping cards to the color theme. So now, we're going to ask ChatGPT to generate JavaScript code that will dynamically load the product recommendations. The script will simulate fetching product data from a mock API, which we'll implement in the frontend for now. Display 12 product cards on the page when the user clicks the Get Recommendations button. Ensure each card flips when hovered over, showing the product's price and a Buy Now button on the back. ChatGPT will provide us with the updated JavaScript code for this functionality. Once we have it, we'll replace the existing code in our script.js file with the new code. Afterward, we'll load the project in Live Server to preview the changes. Great! This looks exactly as we intended it to be. Everything works smoothly, and the product cards are displayed with the correct flipping effect, price, and Buy Now button on the back. Now that we've set up the backend with our users.json and products.json files, it's time to bring everything together by connecting the frontend to the backend. This is the pivotal moment where we ensure that everything on the user interface corresponds exactly with what we have in the backend data. We have 12 users in our users.json file, each with a name and a list of preferred product categories. Meanwhile, our products.json file holds 12 products, each assigned to a specific category. Now, our goal is to make sure that the frontend shows the correct user names, their recommended products, and the associated categories, based on this data. Each card will also feature a product image on the front, and when we hover over the card, we'll see a pop-up displaying the categories that Alice prefers. This pop-up will be dynamically generated based on the data in the backend, so when we hover over Alice's card, we'll see something like electronics, gadgets, pulled directly from her profile in users.json. On the back of each card, we'll show the product price and a Buy Now button, which is all pulled from the corresponding product in the products.json file. Everything we see on the frontend must match exactly with what's in our backend. The usernames must be correct, the recommended products should match the preferred categories, and the categories shown in the hover pop-up should be pulled directly from the user's data. To make this all work, we'll use JavaScript to dynamically fetch and display the data from our backend. We'll loop through the list of users, fetch their preferred categories, and then display the corresponding product from the products.json file. We'll ensure that each card shows the correct username, product image, and categories. Once we've updated the front-end code, we'll load it up in Live Server, and voila! When we check the project, we'll see that each user's card displays their name, the recommended product, and the associated categories, just as we intended. The product cards will flip when hovered over, and on the back, we'll see the product's price and a Buy Now button. Now, we have a dynamic, fully integrated product recommendation system where everything from the user names to the recommended products and categories is automatically linked, ensuring an accurate and personalized experience for each user. To give our product cards a more polished and spacious look, we'll ask ChatGPT to help us add padding and gaps around the cards. This will prevent them from looking too tightly packed and create a cleaner, more user-friendly design. ChatGPT will provide us with updated CSS code that includes these adjustments, and we'll use that to replace our existing styles. After doing this, we can preview the changes by reloading our project in Live Server. Once we've applied the new styles, we'll see the improved layout with cards that have enough spacing and padding around them to make everything look more authentic and visually appealing. It's looking perfect. Now, let's talk about the images. As we discussed earlier, we'll be using Artflow for generating the product images. Artflow is an AI tool that creates highly accurate images based on textual descriptions. This tool is perfect for generating unique and relevant product images that align with the recommendations and categories. By incorporating Artflow-generated images into our cards, we can make our product recommendations visually appealing and more tailored to each user's preferences. Once we integrate the Artflow-generated images into our product cards, the overall aesthetic and functionality of the front-end will be significantly enhanced. After integrating the Artflow-generated images and applying the final adjustments to the padding and layout, the result is truly remarkable. The design is not only visually stunning but also highly responsive. Whether you're viewing it on a mobile device, tablet, or desktop, everything adjusts seamlessly to fit the screen, making it a pleasant experience for users on any device. The product cards now look perfectly spaced, with images that match the product descriptions. The hover effects work flawlessly, displaying the user's preferred categories, product price, and the Buy Now button on the back of each card. It's exactly how we envisioned the e-commerce recommender system should work. The most rewarding part is that we've successfully built a dynamic and personalized e-commerce system that not only recommends products based on user preferences, but also displays the product details, like category, price, and images, accurately for each user. The system now effectively filters the recommended products and categories based on the individual user's profile, pulling data from the backend seamlessly. We can proudly say that we've created a robust, fully functioning product recommendation system. From the user interface to the backend logic, everything is now in place, ensuring that users see tailored recommendations that are relevant to them. It's been a journey of connecting both the frontend and backend, and the result is an engaging and smooth experience for anyone visiting the site. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next video.